Hello, Chair. We good?
I thought you are going
Okay.
to the ITS conference tomorrow.
No, I'm
No.
down in Norfolk right now, but let's get this thing started.
Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Technical Advisory Committee meeting for Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. First order of business is to approve the summary notes from the June 18th, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
Somebody raise their hand for a second or yell out something.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Yep, Dr. Zhu seconded. Any opposed? Hearing none, the summary minutes or summary notes have been approved. Amanda, you're you're up. That's what I'm trying to say.
I am.
Yes.
I get to bring back the strategic plan to you all. I know you're so excited about it. Okay.
Oh, can't wait.
It's like the final little piece here. We're getting it through. So,
Yes.
okay. Without further ado, sharing my screen now and looks good. Okay. I'm Amanda Sink. I'm the Project Delivery and Grants Manager, and I'm bringing back to you the strategic plan update where we're going to go into the draft strategies that we have created for this strategic plan. But before that, a quick outline of what I'll be briefing. Just going to give a quick highlight of what we're doing with the strategic plan, the outline of it. Then we're going to quickly show you the approved vision, mission, core values, and goals. Then we're going to walk through the draft strategies that we have created for these goals, and then outline the next steps of this plan because we're right towards the final of getting this across the finish line. So just as a quick reminder of the outline of the 5-year strategic plan of what we're taking here, I have this graphic that I've showed a couple times here of the outline of the strategic plan. We have our vision, mission, and core values that lead the top of our pyramid. Then we have our goals and then strategies and metrics underneath that. And again, this approach to the 5-year strategic plan is that it will take the overarching strategy to maintain and enhance performance of NVTA's primary responsibilities while addressing other urgent and unmet regional transportation needs. Just as a little reminder that on March 19th of this year, you guys were all briefed the draft vision statement, mission statement, core values, and 4 strategic goals. And then the authority adopted all of those elements on May 8th, 2025. So as a quick reminder, that is all what you have been briefed. And this is what the authority has approved. And this is the starting point of our strategic plan. In the next couple slides here, I'm going to walk through the strategies that undertake these 4 goals that I outline here, that we have: lead the region's transportation initiatives, maximize public benefit through project selection and delivery, enhance regional planning through technical assistance and data-driven information, and safeguard and diversify NVTA's revenue sources. So the first draft strategies that we have for lead the region's transportation initiatives, we have 4 draft strategies outlined here. I have number 1, which is to advance transaction and regional planning initiatives that incorporate evolving transportation trends and strengthen long-term decision-making. This is identifying the core principle of what we were created for, which is to create transaction and regional planning initiatives. And I just want to check, can everybody see the slide that I'm on right now with the draft strategies under goal 1?
Yes.
Okay, making sure it came through. Okay. So yep, 1.1 strategy is solidifying our core responsibility to draft the long-range plan and do planning for Planning District 8, Northern Virginia. 1.2 is lead efforts to identify regional needs and develop actionable approaches for a coordinated regional response. This is giving us that room to meet those urgent and unmet regional transportation needs. What you're going to be briefed on tonight is our continued involvement in the funding of Northern Virginia's bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Things like those initiatives are going to fall under this strategy, that there's a regional need and we're developing actionable approaches towards it. 1.3 is remaining at the forefront of evolving technology and practices by applying and supporting innovative approaches that benefit this region. This is identifying all the work that we did in technology. We have a transportation technology strategic plan. We have a transportation technology committee. NVTA is advancing a lot in the technology front. This strategy outlines all of our work within that. And then 1.4 is amplify NVTA's presence and influence as the region's advocate in the state and federal transportation discussions. And this is underscoring our legislative mandate that is to serve as an advocate for transportation needs of Northern Virginia before the state and federal government. This is outlining that that's the role that's been given to us by code and that we're going to continue to do it. Moving on to goal 2, maximize public benefit through project selection and delivery. This builds upon the initiative that the authority gave us for fiscal year 25 to focus on project delivery. That's why the project delivery role was created, and we've continued to expand efforts on that, and we have a total goal that is developed towards identifying that and advancing that initiative. So 2.1 strategy is to maintain and evolve our funding processes for projects that support long-term regional impacts. This is going on our 6-year program that we want to continue to maintain, but evolve our 6-year program as needed. So one of those evolutions is something that we're currently doing, like incorporating core value analysis. We've kind of evolved that process. So this current 6-year program funding round, all applicants were mandated to submit a core value statement. So that's kind of just showing that we want to continue to evolve our funding processes, and this strategy is outlining that we are going to continue to do that. 2.2 is strengthen ongoing oversight and engagement with project sponsors to proactively identify and address factors impacting project delivery. This is kind of doubling down on that project delivery role. We're not here just to say, hey, execute your SPAs and get reimbursements in, and that's it. NVTA is here as a regional entity to help try to address these issues with project delivery or any type of project issues, especially those of a regional nature. So this is really outlining that big focus that we're taking on the project delivery function with NVTA. And then 2.3 is enhance public awareness of NVTA's investment and project impacts. We don't do anything closed door here. We are a transparent agency, and this is identifying that everything that we do is then publicized to the public. We have public engagement. We want to make sure that we're communicating this equitably to everybody. This gets to the fact that we've developed our gateway that identifies all of our funding on our projects, both our 70 and 30%. So we're just kind of underscoring that need there. Then goal 3 is enhance regional planning through technical assistance and data-driven information. This is getting into our modeling and data analytics team that we have outlined. And over the years, we have developed our in-house capabilities to do these things, and we've outlined strategies to continue that work. And 3.1 is increase NVTA's data analytics capability to lead the use of evolving tools, methods, and technologies. This is outlining that we always want to stay on top of the evolving technology with everything that goes into modeling and data analytics as they evolve new models. We're going to be involved in that. We want to lead that use and make sure we're maintaining the top-notch and up-to-date technology when we're using these data analytic tools. 3.2 is deliver Northern Virginia-specific data and analytics support to assist regional partners. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel or duplicate efforts here. We know that there's other entities, especially like TPP, that does a lot of data analytics, but they do it for the DMV region. We here at NVTA want to give those Northern Virginia specific data insights. We notice that there's kind of a gap there, and we think that NVTA can fill that. So we're outlining a strategy there. We also want to identify, as we're keeping on top of, executing 3.1, if we're staying on top of these evolving tools and keeping up to date, that we want to assist our regional partners as needed. We have a lot of jurisdictions we work with, and some of them might not have the capability of really being able to do a lot of data analytics on there. This is where NVTA can step in and kind of help with that. And we have done it in the past before, where we've coordinated some regional data points for our smaller jurisdictions, and we want to continue to do that as needed under this strategy. And then 3.3 is enhance public and partner access to NVTA data and continue delivering clear data-informed messaging. Again, this is that we do everything transparent. If we're going to look and create data, then we're going to share it. So as NVTA evolves our data analytics tools and databases. We're not just going to keep that behind a closed door. We're going to share that with the public and with our partners, and we're always going to use that data to drive our messaging and everything we do here at NVTA. And then finally, goal 4, safeguard and diversify NVTA revenue sources. This is the goal that outlines the fact that we are a large funding entity. We have to have a goal that helps protect and expand our funding here. So 4.1 is protect and strengthen NVTA's long-term funding capacity through disciplined financial stewardship and reliable future-focused planning. This is a strategy that is to basically maintain our credit rating, to make sure that we can continue fund those out years in our 6-year programs. Then 4.2 is evaluate NVTA's investments and economic benefits to the region and the Commonwealth. After every 6-year program, we do an economic analysis. This is outlining the strategy there that we're going to continue to do that. We're going to involve that. We're going to make sure that we are looking at the economic benefits that we're given to the region with all of the money that we're putting into it. And then 4.3 is pursue competitive funding opportunities that leverage a regional approach and enhance NVTA's capacities to serve as a grant applicant and recipient. Along with the project delivery function in fiscal year 25, the authority also directed to us, and that's the other half of my title, with grants manager. We really kind of want to look at the capacity to get into the federal space, whether that's something that NVTA is applying for a grant application and receiving those money, or if we're applying on behalf of the region and the jurisdictions, those projects that are of regional nature. We want to utilize NVTA's regional leverage to help our jurisdictions pursue competitive grant applications. So those are all the strategies that we have outlined here. I'm going to move into the next slide here quickly for the next steps. We have reviewed draft vision and goals. Those were completed in March and April of 2025. We adopted those vision and goals. That was completed on May 8th, 2025. And right now we are here. We're reviewing the draft strategies. So I presented these to you today, and we'll be also presenting next week to the Planning, Coordination, and Advisory Committee, the PCAC, next week. And I know because you are the TAC, you are going to be asking about the bottom half of that pyramid and go, where are these metrics and what's going on with metrics? Because we like to assess ourselves. As we were developing these strategies, and as you can kind of see as I was presenting these are very high-level strategies to help take us through the next 5 years. And right now at the current stage that we're at, identifying quantifiable metrics is just not entirely possible. But that does not mean that it stops there. You know, this strategic plan is not something that we're just going to adopt and then put on a shelf and never think about again. We're going to be continuing reviewing this and providing annual updates. And those annual updates, that's where the metrics are going to live. That's where we're going to be reporting on those metrics. We'll be able to quantify NVTA's work towards each of those strategies. We're going to evaluate how we're accomplishing those strategies and how we're advancing each goal. So this isn't just a close the book, done strategic plan. It's kind of looked at as a living document, and that living document lives in the metrics. And that will help us taking that approach to evolve and make sure we're assessing ourselves correctly over these next 5 years, because we might be able to look at what we can do in about a year from now, but 2 to 3, it starts getting a little fuzzy, and we don't want to just throw out some arbitrary quantifiable, metric here that just doesn't make sense for us. We didn't necessarily see coming this bike and pedestrian infrastructure, but we are set up to do that, and we're going to report on and quantify our work there. So that being said, our strategic plan right now of what we're looking to adopt is that first half of the pyramid. We have those vision, mission, core values and goals that were all adopted. Now we're looking to solidify our draft strategies. We're going to present this to the authority tentatively next month and looking for the full adoption of the plan in November 2025. And then we're going to continue, like I said, looking at the strategic plan and reporting on our metrics as this continues to live for the next 5 years until we get to the next strategic plan. So with that, that is all I have. What I'm looking for you all today is just kind of your insight, any questions you have about the strategies, because once this is done, this is going to the authority, and this is what we're going to be using going forward, and what we want to do though for the next 5 years.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee?
A brief question. The part about grants, and you mentioned getting into the federal space, is that something new that we that NVTA has not done as much of. It sounded the way it was described that it would be a fairly new venture. And you mentioned, was it only for specifically regional projects, or would it be for like broader scale projects that could span across different parts of the region?
Yes,
The federal side.
So first half of the question is one, yes, this is a new initiative.
Okay.
And it hasn't gotten into the federal space yet. And this is, one of the reasons why we put it under the financial goal is because we want to diversify our revenue sources. So getting that federal funding is diversifying. Also, that there's a lot of a heavy lift on the financial side to be able to apply for and receive federal funding. But then we also want to look at it on the planning side. So this is a new space that NVTA is looking to get into. We're just kind of starting through this process now. And yes, it's this, we wanted to write this strategy flexible enough to allow us to fill that need as we see coming, what's happening with the reauthorization, whatever could be coming within the next 5 years with different administrations. We want to be positioned to be able to support those grant applications as needed as the regional body. We don't want to be competitive with, we're not competing against our own jurisdictions. We're here to help.
Yeah. Okay. That actually helps. That's what you're kind of understanding the reason I was asking the question. So thank you. I appreciate the aspect, the flexibility, the way it was written to allow that for whatever could come along. So thank you.
Karen, yeah, hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I thank you so much. This was a really great and informative presentation. I really appreciate the details. My question is the part about working with localities that may not necessarily have the resources, and I really appreciate you mentioning and emphasizing that this is something that will continue. Is there a strategy, or how would these localities be aware that resources are available? Is it is it going to be communicated out, or is it is that support helping complete the application, or is that support given once the application is provided? So I was just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit, but I really love everything you said tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify your question, are you looking specifically at what we were talking about with the grant side, or for the technical assistance side, or both?
You know what? Both. I was really talking about the technical assistance side, but if you brought up the grant, I'll take that too.
Okay, I thought it was the technical assistance side. So first of all of these draft strategies were initially briefed to the RJAC, the Regional Jurisdiction and Agency Coordinating Committee, and that's where all of the jurisdictions have representatives. So they have seen all of this, and they've received the same presentation as you did. And that is where we're going to continue. That's where we would communicate to them as we build out these functions and we're able to provide this technical assistance to them. That's the committee that we come to and would tell them that, okay, we're able to do this. Does anybody need help? Type thing. So it's a really great body to come to get everybody to get together. And that would probably go for the technical side and the grant side as well. And of course, we're always working with our jurisdictions as we have a lot of funding on their projects. We're a big funder in the region, so we're usually aware of what's going on, and NVTA kind of can come in and let you know, hey, we're able to do this. So I know that we've helped create smart scale applications, and we want to be able to continue to do that as well. So, but a lot of that is going to be communicated through the RJAC.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. I thought I saw a hand raised, but
Yes.
unless anybody has any questions, go ahead, Amanda.
I saw a hand raise. Yeah, that's what I said. I said, yes, I saw a hand raise as well.
Yeah, I saw it too, and then it went away. So
Yeah. I have a question regarding the goal number 3, and you talked about developing capacity for data analytics and to inform the decision making. So I'm curious if this is you are envisioning this to be in-house capacity, or you are going to leverage external resources, because for example, you mentioned TPB from the COG, but also like VDOT is doing a lot of data analysis to support their business. So how do you envision this collaboration with other regional bodies?
Well, it would absolutely be in collaboration with other regional bodies. Obviously, we don't want to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. So we're looking to kind of fill the small gaps that we see and being able to provide that Northern Virginia specific. So that's kind of diverting from where the TPB does. They might not be able to get to that granular level. And at the same time, in VDOT, where we can really get into like a very specific jurisdictional level. If it's just within Arlington and Alexandria, then we'll kind of help look at some things like that. And Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we did something like this on streetlight data for 2 jurisdictions before to help them with a grant application. We were able to put some data together for them. And this is developing our in-house capabilities. We're not going to completely get away towards using external things. Completely, but we are developing our own in-house capabilities, and we have our in-house modeling capability. And Keith, if you wanted to add more on that.
There's not much to add. I think you covered it very well. I think there is a real desire to beef up our in-house capabilities, consistent with an organization of our size and responsibilities. We've kind of had slow growth in that area. We're now becoming much more equipped from a hardware software perspective, and we want to make sure we have the human capabilities that match that. So that's kind of the 5-year lookout that we have here.
Yeah, I was just curious about which direction NVTA is planning to go, because data analytics require a lot of human resources, as you mentioned, not only tools but also training. So yeah, I understand as a organization grows, there's more needs, and yeah, just want to understand the background.
Thank you. Keith, I think you're next on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Amanda, for that.
Yep. Alyssa, if you could load the presentation, I'll go through this fairly quickly. This is for information purposes this evening. No action related to this evening, but we will be seeking your endorsement of either our recommendations or final report, or sorry, final draft report at your next meeting in October. So we wanted to give you some greater insights into what we're doing, so you could be prepared for that next month. Just by way of background, we got a formal request from the Transportation House and Senate Committee chairs back in March of this year, requesting NVTA review the findings of a piece of work that VDOT completed in 2024, the Northern Virginia Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Study, and specifically for us to make some recommendations related to regional funding options. And there were further requests as to how we will go about this work and coordination, in particular with VDOT, our member jurisdictions, various advocacy groups and stakeholders. So I want to give you the update tonight. Alyssa, if you could go forward to the next slide. I'll cover 3 areas as outlined on this side. Outlining what the initiative is and what it is not. Discuss our project approach, and then if you have questions, and hopefully there'll be time for that as well. Next slide. So what we're looking at here is, funding strategies and sources. The VDOT study identified more than 4,000 miles of bike ped infrastructure that needs funding, including shared use paths, sidewalks, bicycle lanes, natural surface trails, shared lanes, and the estimate that came with that analysis was running into tens of billions of dollars to fund all of that. And clearly there's, that's a lot of money, and not something on that scale that's readily available to begin to implement the infrastructure that was identified. So our approach to this is breaking out into the four kind of areas outlined here. Beginning with a look at existing funding sources, in particular, to see what our member jurisdictions are currently doing. Next, we evaluated various case studies across the nation to see if there are other parts of the country which are doing smart things that Northern Virginia can learn from, particularly at a regional scale. We have coordinated with existing ongoing efforts, and you'll have heard of both SJ28 and DMV Moves. These are both transit-focused initiatives, but in looking at sustainable funding for transit, they're certainly throwing up no shortage of good ideas that could also be applicable to bike pedestrian infrastructure. And then the fourth part of our approach was the coordination with regional partners, and so on to get their ideas on opportunities and barriers that they're aware of, either within the region or from elsewhere, that are affecting the ability to secure funding. Next slide, please. So it's worth pointing out at this stage, I think, what we are not trying to do with this initiative. We're not identifying any new projects beyond what's in the VDOT 2024 study. That's our starting point, and we're not really looking to change that at this time. We're not looking to prioritize any of the projects that were identified for funding. We're not assessing the feasibility of anything, and we're not doing kind of like a detailed financial cost analysis, financial modeling and so on, to ascertain the potential of different revenue streams. These are all very logical things that need to be done, but we're not there yet. At the moment, we're looking at a much higher level to begin that process. I'll get more into that in just a moment. Next slide, please. I think it will be helpful to understand the timeline, because this does explain in part why we're not doing some things. We got the invitation back in March. We were able to kick off the effort by June. We have hired a consultant, Kimberly Horn, to help us with the work. Kimberly Horn was the firm that did the VDOT study in 2024, so we felt the continuity of that knowledge and experience was quite important to this piece of work. Over the summer, we've held 2 regional coordination meetings, and we've also done our own research into existing funding sources and potential new funding strategies. We're working on a document right now as we speak, and that's what we'll be bringing back to you next month for hopefully your endorsement and certainly your feedback. We'll be doing the same thing with the PCAC in October, and then to maintain our timeline, we will be seeking NVTA's approval at some level of the work, and depending on any comments, conditions, concerns that are expressed, we'll have December to make revisions and prepare for presentations to General Assembly members, specifically the committee chairs, but no doubt others as well, in time for the kickoff of the next General Assembly session in January of 2026. So it's a very, very tight timeline, and that's why we wanted to bring it to your attention this evening. I've got a couple more slides. If you could advance, talk about regional coordination stakeholders. You can go one more, I'll say. Thanks. So we invited representatives from these organizations. I think the number of invitees was about 60 individual people. And we had pretty good representation through the two regional coordination meetings that were held. If you want to go to the next slide. Just to be clear on our approach to funding, there's two parts of this. There's the existing pots of money. We wanted to make sure that we were aware of those and understood how they're used, the extent to that they are used for funding bike and pedestrian projects. And then future funding strategies are new strategies to create new revenue streams that are not necessarily implemented in Northern Virginia or elsewhere in the Commonwealth, but that could still be used to fund bike and pedestrian projects. So it's kind of a combination of these two strands, which is really what's going to come out of this and be considered as the options for looking at feasible approaches to fund some of that 4,000 plus mile network of unfunded bike ped infrastructure that I mentioned earlier. Next slide. So in looking at existing funding sources, we wanted to be kind of all encompassing. We wanted to understand, the suitability or applicability of the different sources that were identified, to see how they're used. And the amounts of money, match requirements, and so on that may apply. Who can actually apply for that funding? And then we wanted to learn from the regional coordination partners as well, and ultimately for us to develop a funding source matrix. So in our regional coordination meeting number 1, if you advance one more slide, Alyssa, this was held at the back end of July. We had 27 participants who were not NVTA employees or members of the consultant team. So these are actually truly stakeholders who participated. We also held an online survey, recognizing that not everyone could participate since it was that time of year when people are taking their well-earned time off. So in addition to the 27 participants, we got a further 14 responses through the online survey. And the key things we've learned here are shown on the right-hand side. It seems, as hard as it is to get funding to build stuff, it's even harder to get funding to maintain stuff. That's probably not unique to bike ped infrastructure, but it certainly was what our stakeholders told us, that identifying maintenance funding is the most difficult thing. But also constructing and maintaining projects are most difficult to secure funding for. So we have a problem with identifying, and then having identified, we have a problem with securing the funding. Various means kind of came to the top in terms of funding streams, particularly transportation alternatives, VDOT's revenue sharing, smart scale, NVTA's local and regional revenue streams were like the primary sources that were identified, although there were others. If you go to the next slide. When it came to looking at funding strategies, the goal here is to identify, things which could include new taxes and fees. And we wanted to get you cast a broad net of possibilities, and then evaluate those potential strategies using a handful of metrics, such as potential revenue magnitude and growth potential, the stability of the funding strategy, ease of pathway to implementation, the benefit that tax or fee payers would potentially receive, socioeconomic burden, and impact on business. They were the measures that we used to look at the different strategies that had been identified. We then discussed these with regional coordination partners, conduct some case studies, and ultimately we'll come up with the most feasible set of strategies. I mentioned SJ28 and DMV moves before, but we are taking on board the findings of both of those initiatives, although they're transit focused, because of their potential relevance and applicability to this work as well. Much like Amanda said earlier, we don't want to reinvent any wheels, and there's a lot of research being done for those two initiatives that we believe was potentially valuable for this one. Next slide. So kind of with all this information, we kind of moved into our second regional coordination meeting, which was held about a month after the first one, towards the end of August. And actually, I think that was just prior to the Labor Day weekend. Despite that, we actually got more participants, but the key here was that second meeting was held virtually, which I think made it a lot easier for people to participate, and also with live polling. And what we learned from this second meeting was that when we asked whether we'd done a decent job at capturing and summarizing the funding sources, the existing funding sources, for the most part, the participants said this was accurate, some saying it was very accurate. So that was good to get that validation. In terms of how well the strategies that were emerging align with the thoughts and experiences of the participants, it was a bit more mixed, somewhat equivalent. And then in terms of the most important evaluation criteria, revenue magnitude and pathway to implementation was seen as the most important. Is there enough money? Can it be implemented? Was really at the heart of this. So that was what we learned from the second coordination meeting. If we go to the next slide, the funding strategies that we identified, 45 have been reviewed qualitatively. As I said earlier, we're not doing a detailed financial analysis of these, but we have, using the measures that I identified earlier, we've kind of done an initial assessment of 45 funding strategies. As you can see, these cover general revenue taxes, property taxes and fees, sales and consumption taxes, transportation related taxes and fees, alternative taxes and fees. And we're currently working on our recommendations based on input from our stakeholders, and preparing a document to present our process and recommendations. And that's what you'll be seeing at the October meeting. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions as best I can. I would point out that our project manager for this initiative, Starla Cuso, is not with us this evening because she's actually at the AMPO conference, and we've given her the evening off so she doesn't have to kind of do this as well as deal with all the conference stuff as well. So I'll do my best to answer questions. I may not know all the detailed answers, in which case I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Back to you, Chair Boyce.
Thanks, Keith. Any questions on what we just covered here?
I thought I saw something pop up in
Yeah,
chat.
Michelle,
I
and
did have a question.
yep, and
Yeah.
Frank
Yeah,
had something
thanks.
too, but go ahead, Michelle.
So I think this is really great and the start of something big and important. It's a really important regional need. Funding for these types of things have been really slowly filling in the gaps in the system. So this is great. Now, in light of what you described, like what this is not, I thought that was really important. It's not prioritization. It's not project identification. I had two questions, and the second question is dependent on the answer to the first. I think I understand this correctly, but help me out. The 2024 VDOT study, I believe, is essentially a map or a detailed summary of what are the missing links, right? Is that correct? Like where there are pedestrian facilities planned but they don't exist yet. Is that what the quote study is? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be missing links, but
Okay.
it could be more general enhancements as well that are planned, you know, in a comprehensive plan, but not yet in a capital improvement program.
Okay. So if this effort right now is focusing only on funding sources and funding strategies, it's not getting into prioritization or implementation. How is that 2024 study connected to what's going on right now? Or how is that being used? Or is it not? Is it just a springboard at this point?
It's really a springboard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of setting some parameters. So, for instance, when we start to think about revenue streams and how much they can generate, even at a high level, having an understanding of how big the ask is kind of helpful for us in understanding, when we look at the kind of the amount of I just want to check the wording that I use to be consistent here, but uh, where we talked about just give me a second. Yeah, I'm not finding the words, but in terms of the revenue potential, I think that's what I'm looking for is, it understanding the revenue potential in the context of the actual need is kind of where that becomes important. I would say there's a lot of technical work that is kind of underpinning the VDOT work, which may yet prove to be useful depending on how we report out our work. So there's a lot of GIS layers, for example, in the VDOT work, which may be helpful from both an analytical perspective and from a presentational visualization perspective as well. But yeah, it's primarily a platform, and there's a body of knowledge for the team, the small team that was involved in doing that work, which has transitioned across to this work. So we've kind of got that continuity of knowledge as well.
That's great. I'm sure the localities would be really interested in this moving forward. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm just reading Frank's question. Frank, I believe you are correct. Thank you for pointing that out. But I will double check.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Keith?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's really informative. My question is about what is the connection between this study and what the approach NVTA is applying in all those evaluations. And so it's good to understand there are potential revenue sources to support back-end pedestrian infrastructure. But is that going to affect how NVTA is evaluating all the projects? As I understand, in NVTA evaluation process, there is no like a back-end pedestrian infrastructure or lanes modeled explicitly. We just applied some kind of mode split parameter there. So yeah, I guess the question is how is this findings from this study is going to inform the practice?
Right. It's not going to change our 6-year program process at all at this stage. It might down the road, depending on what happens after January of next year. But we have no plans to change our evaluation process if we receive a funding request for either a standalone bike ped project or a project that includes bike ped facilities. Yeah, we will apply the same approach as you indicate, modeling where we can, and if not, using off-model approaches or proxy measures within a model to evaluate to some degree the impact of bike ped facilities. That will continue. That's not the approach we're applying to this piece of work either, because that's really just not the point of what we've been asked to do. The point of what we've been asked to do is to identify the funding strategies, how the funding strategies translate eventually to funding streams, and then in turn to prioritizing and programming the funding. That is just is just too far in the distance at the moment, and it's outside the scope of what we've been asked to do. But it needs to be done. Don't get me wrong, it needs to be done, but it's just not within our scope at this time.
Looks like Keith, are you playing the part of Shri and Monica today?
I am, as
Okay.
well as the part of Keith. Do you want me to go into 6-year program stuff?
Sure.
Yeah, just very quickly, and this was reported to NVTA at its September meeting last week. The deadline for submitting applications to our FY 2026 to 2031 6-year program deadline, I think was July 31. No, sorry, August 1. Excuse me, August 1. And at that point, we have received 27 applications from 8 applicants for a total request of rounded $1.3 billion. And the total project cost associated with that request is $2.3 billion. And I have no information at the moment as to whether the $1 billion difference between the request and the total project cost is already covered by other committed funds, or whether that's covered by funding applications to other bodies, or whether there's a funding gap. I don't have that information to hand at this moment in time. We're really going through a process of confirming eligibility and confirming a sufficiently detailed understanding of the project and what they're intended to accomplish, so that we can begin to think about modeling and other evaluation approaches we need to apply, kind of along the lines, doctors, you just mentioned, what we do to evaluate projects. We need to make sure we've got that information so that we can begin to run the models and so on. But that's going to be taking place over the months ahead. Just one additional factoid I will share of the 27 applications. The highest number of applications, not the majority, but I think I would call this a plurality, 13 projects are bike ped projects, as it happens. So 13 out of the 27 applications are bike ped. The next highest at 6 is roadway, and then we have 3 each for interchange/intersection and bus/BRT, and then 1 each for rail and technology, ITS type projects. That's in terms of the number of applications. That the distribution between the modes, primary modes by funding request is 37% for bus BRT, and 37% for roadway, followed by 19% of the funding request is for bike ped, and then 6% for interchange, 1% for rail, and rounded 0% for technology, but we know it's not an absolute zero. I just rounded to zero. So that's the summary of what we're looking at right now. Happy to take any questions on that.
Amy?
I might have missed it, Keith, but is the application window closed or is that still open?
The application window has closed. It closed on August 1. What is
That's
still
fine.
open until October 31st is the deadline. That's the deadline for applicants to submit all governing body resolutions. We will begin evaluating on the assumption that those governing body resolutions are coming, but we give a bit more time because, with a deadline that is in August for the applications, we realize that getting governing bodies to take action on things like this is not the easiest over the summer. And so we understand that and give more time for those governing body resolutions to come in. This is separate to public engagement and supporting letters and so on. That will not happen until spring of next year. The governing body resolutions are simply a statement that jurisdiction and agency staff are authorized to make these requests, and if these requests are approved, then the governing body is in a position to actually advance the project with the funding that will enter into a standard project agreement with us, and in order to advance the project. So it's like a more formal piece than a measure of support or otherwise for a project that, as I say, comes later during the public engagement process.
And so these funding requests that you did receive, how does that compare to normal? Does the funding request just seem to increase every year? Is it typical? Is it higher?
I should have anticipated that question. It's a high funding request.
It seems really high, right?
Yeah. In the last program, I think we funded about 600 or 700 million. And I recall the funding request was a little bit higher than that because not every project got fully funded. But I don't remember it being like double that,
Okay.
which is a bit closer to where we are now. So this is big. I would say it remains to be seen what our revenue will look like and how much we can afford to fund. We won't know that number until quite late in the process. But the last 2 or 3 cycles have been at the order of like 5, 6, $700 million has been the funding amount that we've had available. So it gives you an idea of how competitive the program is, which in turn, is important to understand. It helps understand the importance of our evaluation process because it will need to, determine what's rising to the top, what's not rising to the top. And just coming back to those governing body resolutions, if we don't get a governing body resolution for every one of the 27 projects by October 31, any project that's not got the governing body resolutions it needs will be eliminated at that stage. I hope that won't happen. I don't believe that's happened before, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Keith for playing Shri. Now it's your turn to play Monica.
Okay, I think if Monica were to be here, the only thing she probably would mention, which I think you've already been emailed, but I'll say it again, is on October 22nd, in the morning, we will be having we'll be hosting our second annual State of the Regions Transportation event, and it's it's going to involve a presentation of the analysis that in fact, Alyssa, our staff coordinator for the Technical Advisory Committee, has played a major role in pulling together. Monica's going to present those findings, and then she'll moderate a panel of some esteemed transportation experts on matters pertaining to transit and bus rapid transit. So I think it'd be a very interesting session. I know you've all got day jobs, so well, apart from maybe Frank, but but we'd love to see you if your schedules permit. There's no fee for attending, but there is a requirement to register because of the room capacity limitations.
And I'll just give an update to that we are already about half full at capacity. So please make sure to register if you wish to come. We'd love to see you there.
Yes, we would. And that is Ms. Backman's update.
Excellent. And we are 3 minutes before the 59-minute rule expires. So unless there's any other questions, I move to adjourn. I don't even need a second. We just leave. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Just one thing, Jeb Boyce, I would say is because this meeting was held virtually, and in order to maintain compliance with open meeting rules and so on, the next meeting must be in person.
Yes, understood. Thank you for that. And we'll see you next month.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a
Good
good
night.
evening.
Thank you.